Oh, that's pretty.
May there always be an angel by your side.
It's a junk journal. It's basically a journal with a whole bunch of like pictures, cute little papers and stuff like that.
I just want everything to go okay for you.
Thank you. I think it will.
I'm really big on writing down your dreams and your goals. And the whole point of bringing a journal to her was to say, I wish you happiness in your next chapter.
Hey friends, it's Katie from Without a Sister Wife, L. Welcome back to my channel. It is Wednesday, February 12th, 2025. Do you remember on Sister Wives this last season when Robyn Brown gave Mary this journal she called it? She called it a junk journal, and she pulled it out of the bag, which was so weird to me, like she gives a gift to Mary and then opens the gift for Mary, and then she pulls out this journal that has these ribbons on it and jewelry on it, hassles, and it had cards in it, and it was filled with old pages and placards and little pieces of paper that had sayings on them, and some of the pages you could actually write on. A lot of the pages were already filled out, and it had pictures, and I'd never seen anything like this. And she called it a junk journal, and I had to look into what a junk journal is. It's actually, technically speaking, you're supposed to make them yourselves, and you use recycled stuff that you have in your house, and it's supposed to be like a place where you can use old paper. You can find old cutouts and snippets and photographs and put it all together. It's like a scrapbooking craft, but it's junk journaling. It's apparently a popular craft. But instead of crafting them herself, she buys them, and there's people that craft these and create these and sell them on Etsy. So it's supposed to be about reusing the stuff that you already have to create something beautiful. And then a place for you to write down memories or whatever. And then the journals have these different themes. And I was like, okay, that's interesting. But when I started looking at Robyn's Etsy reviews, I noticed that she has purchased a ton of these, and I just want to be so clear that I'm fairly confident that she didn't buy that journal for Mary. I'm assuming she had a journal like that already in her house, and already maybe in a box, and she just pulled out a box and was like, oh, I'm going to give this to Mary. So she's had some custom made, and she's had some that she purchases through these different vendors. There's a couple different vendors that she uses, but these journals are so expensive. So I thought when she bought a journal, I was like, oh, that's so cheap. Why would you buy someone a journal? Like 20 bucks. I didn't know that the journal she bought her was $175 for a goodbye journal that won't last and that only has I don't know, 55 pages to write on. I think $175. And Robyn has a ton of these, and she has. So I want to just give you a sense of how she feels about these journals. And then you'll realize how selfish she is for giving this to Mary. I am so pleased and happy with this journal Carol has, was so helpful and went to great lengths to make a journal for my friend. She found the perfect pictures and used my friend's favorite colors to make something she would love. My friend was so impressed and loved the journal, and it was a time for tea journal. That's not the one she got married. Another review. Every one of Carol's journals is magnificent, and full of details. This one is no exception. I've bought several. I'm going to give this one to a loved one who loves to read. I was so excited when I saw it in person. It's even more wonderful, thank you. And it's one about reading like for book lovers. And another one, another exquisite journal. I absolutely love them, and that one's for dragonflies. There's a sewing journal she bought, gorgeous. I love this journal. It is so sweet and beautiful, and I'm excited to give it to my aunt as a birthday gift. If someone is hesitating to purchase one of these journals, be assured that every single one I own, I absolutely love and cherish. She has one that's Dean's Book of Nursery Rhymes. Journal, another absolutely stunning journal. It is so special to see the illustrations from a book I read as a child in the journal. The details are so beautiful. Every journal I own is of hers, is so unique and wonderful. I want to give one to everyone I know. Thank you so much for your beautiful art. So what she does on Etsy is she buys journals. She buys vintage, etched like amethyst colored dishware and vases and art for the walls. And I started to notice this theme about Robyn, and then some of her behavior on the show started to make sense. Almost everything that she buys is very immature. It's the kind of stuff that you would get when you're a child or a preteen, early teen. The journals remind me of something that a teenage girl would be into, or what might have been something we were into when we were younger. I don't remember junk journals being popular when Robyn and I were kids. I'm the exact same age as Robyn. She is 1 month older than me. And I don't remember junk journals, but I'm not a crafter. So I don't know. But I noticed that a lot of the items she buys are the kinds of things you would buy for a child. American Girl dolls. I did some research on American Girl dolls, and I found out that they were first released in 1986 and they were purchased, and so, or they were sold out of a catalog. And in the first year, I think they sold over $1 million worth of dolls. They eventually were purchased in stores, but initially these were ordered through a catalog. That's the only way you could buy them. They were very expensive. I knew next to nothing about American Girls. I'll be completely honest, I was never into dolls. I had Barbies, but I didn't like the baby dolls or the girl dolls like this because they scared the crap out of me. I didn't like the CH eyes that moved and opened. They scared me. I was terrified that if I bought a doll, it would come and try to schmurder me in the middle of the night. So I was never into these dolls. But they became popular and they were released when Robyn and I were kids. So the first year they're popular, they're made in 86. And then they sort of take off. And by the early 90s, they're everywhere. So when we were between the ages of 8 to 14, they became a thing. And Robyn apparently hasn't let go of that. But I have a hard time believing she would have been able to afford an American Girl doll. As a child, these dolls are supposed to each tell a story. They're supposed to give historical backgrounds. They only released so many of them. There's controversy around American Girl dolls because some of the dolls, they're criticized for not having a lot of diversity. They were criticized for the first African American doll that was introduced was a slave, and it was the only girl that was African American of all of the dolls. So if you were a girl that wanted a doll that looked like you from American Girl dolls, you had to buy a doll. That was a slave named Addie. So they're not without controversy, but whoever, there's some people that these Robyn has not lost her affinity for a doll that became popular when we were 8 and 10 years old. It's like she has emotionally never grown up beyond that. And then I started to think about how she behaves and what she does on the show. And I was like, wait a minute, she's very impulsive. She cries and has temper tantrums all the time. Her emotional responses to things are the kinds of things that girls do when they can't control their emotions, when they can't deal with the big feelings that they're having. Remember when if you're a girl, remember when you were 12, 13, 14, even when you were younger, when you would get mad or get frustrated instead of yelling, you might cry, and I've noticed that she does that a lot. When she's mad or upset, she starts crying. And do you remember that there was always those girls when we were little? If you're a girl that would get into trouble, and then they would start crying because they would manipulate people and be like, I didn't mean to, or I'm so upset, or they start crying to get out of trouble. They're using tears to weapon as a weapon to get whatever it is that they want. So they cry when they're mad. They cry when they're angry. They cry when they're sad. They cry when they're in trouble. They cry to deflect. And I was like, that's exactly what Robyn does. She reminds me of that little girl that has a full-on temper tantrum and instead of yelling starts crying, and then when she gets in trouble, instead of admitting what she's done, she starts crying, and then the crying makes people feel bad. And so you stop what you're doing because you're like, oh, I made her cry. I can't talk to her. I don't want to make her cry anymore. That's kind of how her emotional affect is to me. She's like childlike. She acts like a kid. And I was like, she's like emotionally stunted. And then she's buying all of these things that are emotionally. And me, they're like for kids. And I was looking at, so she buys these books, these journals. She buys American dolls. She buys all of these etched glass that is colored, which was super popular back in the 60s and 70s. And our parents had them. So it's like something her mom probably had. And she's like going back to being a kid. She buys vintage jewelry that was popular when we were kids or our moms wore. So it's like she's buying everything and like going back to her childhood. And I'm like, okay, so what happened in Robyn's childhood that traumatized her so much that she's just trapped in this? And then to cope with whatever she's dealing with, it's like she just goes online and shops. I'm not a psychologist. It was just something that I noticed. I also noticed Robyn's hair reminds me of the dolls that she buys. And this was always something that stumped me about Robyn. It's like, why does she do the ringlet curls? The only person I remember doing that when we were kids was Nellie Olin on Little House on the Prairie. She had the ringlet curls. She was the bully. She was Laura's bully. Her parents owned a candy shop. She was so mean to Laura and Laura Ingalls Wilder. And so whenever I saw her with her hair, I'd be like, oh, she's like Nellie. But that hairstyle was not popular for us as kids. When we were kids in that age frame, in the 880s, girls had really big curly frizzy hair that they ratted out and had really high bangs. But then when we became teenagers, our generation started rebelling against that older generation of the Gen X, and a lot of us ended up having straight, flat ironed hair. No bangs, almost like in rebellion to what we saw the older kids in front of us. Doing the ringlet curl was never anything popular. And then I noticed that she bought a custom doll, and I noticed that the custom dolls have ringlet curls, and I was like, is she trying to look like a doll? Is she styling her hair, her eyebrows, her wardrobe like she's a doll? And then what does that say about someone? If they want to be a doll, it's like she's escaping her life by trying to be a doll. Or there's something that happened to her in her childhood, some sort of trauma, and she has never left that. And she's buying all of these things going back to that childhood. And then she's buying these gifts impulsively. And she's acting impulsively. When she's shopping and when you're a kid, you have no impulsivity. I mean, you have no patience. You're always doing whatever you want. You do whatever you need at the time. And then when she gets caught doing stuff, she always lies and she blames other people. She calls people names. And I started looking at what are the signs of a childish, adult and emotional childish would have emotional escalations. So they often cry, get mad, or outwardly appear petulant. And pouting grown-ups seldom do blaming when things go wrong. Young children look to blame. Someone grown-ups look to fix problems. So these are 10 signs of an emotional child lying when there's a situation that's uncomfortable. Young children might lie to stay out of trouble. Grown-ups deal with the reality, reliably speaking the truth. Name-calling children call each other names. Adults seek to understand issues. Adults do not make ad hominem attacks, that is, attacks on people's personal traits. Instead of they attack the problem. Remember how she, was calling them, weight shaming and shaming them about sex, and all of that. Poor impulse control. Children strike out impulsively when they feel hurt or mad. They speak recklessly or take impulsive action without pausing to think about the consequences they don't like. They, instead of listening to other people's viewpoints, they're interrupting them. They need to be the center of attention. Ever tried to have an adult dinner conversation with a 2-year-old at the table? They bully. They've been a child who's physically larger than other child his age can walk up to another child who's playing with a toy they like and just take it. They can have budding narcissism. So if children or adults can get whatever they want because they're bigger, stronger, or richer, they become at risk of learning that the rules don't apply to them, whatever they want. They take this narcissistic dependency. May initially look like strength, but in reality, it reflects a serious weakness, being unable to see beyond oneself. Immature defenses, children tend to regard the best defense as a strong offense, while that defensive strategy may look work in football, and attacking someone who expresses a viewpoint different than what they want is in life. A primitive defense mechanism. So, what would be a primitive defense? I didn't say that I never did. That's not me. I don't remember. And no observing of the ego. They are unable to acknowledge or learn from their mistakes. Children who have not yet internalized mature guidelines of respectful behavior towards others, or who have not developed ability to observe their behaviors, to judge what's in line and what's out of line. See anger as normal. They regard their emotional outbee birds as ego-psionic. That is perfectly fine, justifying them by blaming the other person. I only did it because you made me. So she acts like a child. She's like emotional, a childish adult. And this is probably why these women like Christine and Janelle don't relate to her, because you can't, how do you relate to someone that acts like a kid? I mean, every time she doesn't get her way, she pouts and gets up and stomps and cries. She cries when people leave. She acts so impulsively. She bullies people. She's reckless with her spending. She doesn't care how she treats other people, but then expects everyone to treat her well. It's like the world revolves around Robyn, almost like she's an 8-year-old. And I think sometimes 8-year-olds are better behaved than her, because my son is 12, and kids do lie. But like, if my son lies, I'm like, that's a lie. He's like, okay, yeah, you're right. I'm sorry. So she's emotionally stunted, right? And then she's on Etsy buying all this crap, and she has boxes and boxes and boxes of this in her basement, right? And she's probably just pulling crap out and giving this to people as gifts because she needs to give them something. But then, yet again, what kind of person gives a $175 journal to someone, right? Like, it's just an odd gift. It's not something Mary would want or need. And Robyn buys gifts that she would want, not thinking about what her friends would want. And even when she described why she gave the gift, she said, I like to write all of my journal. I like to write down my dreams. I like to think about where I'm going to go. And I want to give her a gift where she can write down her dreams and she can have a new chapter for her life, not considering if Mary would want to do this or if this is even something Mary likes to do. It's what Robyn thinks she would, everyone else would want, because she likes it. So Robyn likes dolls, and she gives dolls to all of her friends, like her aunt, her mom, whoever. Robyn likes stickers and art, so she gives everyone stickers and art. Robyn likes junk journals, so she gives everyone junk journals. She's not taking time to actually get to know people and what they like and dislike because she can't think outside of herself. And then she's stuck online on Etsy buying all this stuff. And it's just, this is the part about the show that bothers me, because if you knew her childhood, maybe we would understand why she acts this way, right? If she actually spoke about that trauma in her childhood. Because another thing she does is it's clear, and I know that her biological father was very abusive, Multiple people I've spoken to have told me that her dad, Robert, was extremely abusive, had horrific feelings about sex, treated women terribly, and that the girls were abused by him physically. So if Robyn's dad was abusing her, and she has all of this unresolved trauma, she always blames everyone in the family for traumatizing her. Even though they have, she's actually the one traumatizing everyone around her. So long story short, these books she's buying and that gift she gave to Mary wasn't about Mary. It was about her again, not recognizing Mary as an individual or seeing what Mary wants. She made Mary stay and manipulated Mary to stay for a very long time instead of letting her go because it was what she wanted and it was what she said she needed. But it wasn't fair to Mary. And then she wanted Mary money and Janelle's money. And so she was spending all of her time trying to get Cody to keep these women. And I think another part of her wanting him to have sister wives. And this is just me. But if you have a spending problem and you're trying to hide your spending from your spouse, what better way to do that than when he's not home? You can hide the packages. She had a whole shed that she hid everything from Preston. So if Cody wasn't around all the time, she could probably do more shopping, just a thought. So Robyn's selfishness and her purchasing all make sense. She's trapped as a child, and she wants to be a doll. What are your thoughts? I actually feel kind of sad for her in a way, and I hope she gets help. I really want her to get help, like anyone that's living like this, and they're 46. Like this is no way to live. What are your thoughts? Tell me in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up. Make sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't subscribed, and click the bell so you never miss a video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye, guys.